Hello and welcome to Sideline Insights. I'm Colin and I'm with my co-host Henry. And today we're going to dive into the 2025 college football season and the 12-team playoff. Let's dig into it, Henry. Now, Henry, they implemented the 12-team playoff this year. How did you feel about that?
Personally, I liked it. I like having the 12 teams, but my one complaint would be that it was just very controversial, like the 12 and 11 seed and where teams were placed. Obviously, with a Boise State, a 3 seed, Arizona State, a 4 seed. That's just very controversial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what I would say is they really need to rethink about how they rated these teams or ranked them for this playoff. Because a team like SMU, I don't think should have made the playoffs because they had to go into Happy Valley and play that tough Penn State team and their tough defense. And I think they really struggled with that. And I just think a team like them or Boise shouldn't deserve the ratings that they got.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with a 3-loss Alabama team, you still have that SEC strength of schedule. So with the committee, they have to decide if they want to either make it strength of schedule or teams, wins and losses, right? Because if you have Alabama team with 3 losses, they might schedule easier teams just so they can get in that playoff.
Absolutely. And staying on the topic of the playoffs, Henry, what was your favorite game throughout this season?
One of my favorite games was the Notre Dame versus Penn State game. Just 2 really great teams all around. That's one that I'd have to go with.
Yeah, no, and I would definitely say Arizona versus Texas was also a great game, coming down to that final field goal. And I think Texas kicker Brett Auburn really struggled that game, and it was nice to see him come back for the rest of that playoff and perform well.
Just speaking on playoffs, and who was the most valuable player in this playoffs?
I would have had to say Will Howard. He really led that Ohio State team well, showed why he deserves to be such a high draft pick, and really proved how he's just a dog in general.
Yeah, my personal opinion, Will Howard played great. I have to go with Jack Sawyer. Clutch after clutch in the semifinal and quarterfinal. 2 sacks versus number 1 Oregon. A strip sack versus Texas to win them the football game. Great player and came up clutch.
Yeah. And speaking of some great games, what were your favorite games from this season?
I had 3 really great games. Alabama versus Georgia, classic rivalry. I'd have to put that at my number 1 favorite game. Oregon versus Ohio State. It was a 1-point game, 1 and 2 seed. Very great game. And then Michigan versus Ohio State, classic rivalry, probably the number 1 rivalry of all time. And Michigan completed the upset.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they call it the big game for a reason. And I would also say another one of my favorite games was Georgia versus Alabama. It was just a great game in general. It's always nice to see those 2 powerhouses go at it. I would also say one of the other great games was Georgia Tech versus Georgia. I mean, it was a matchup no one expected to be a good game. And Georgia Tech really started off strong and performed well, but sadly they came out with an L. And another game I would say would be Vanderbilt versus Alabama, the upset no one expected to happen. I mean, that Vanderbilt team really proved themselves this season to be a good football program. And I also think another honorable mention for that would be Illinois versus South Carolina, as Illinois' coach taunted South Carolina's coach with the substitution thing, and I just thought it was just a great game to watch. And the Big Ten proved themselves dominant this playoff.
Yeah, definitely a very controversial thing in this playoff was, the SEC has ran the playoffs for the past 10 years, but Big Ten definitely showed out this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we also have to talk a little bit about Jeremiah Smith, who was just a dominant receiver throughout this playoff. He just showed why he's going to be a great talent in 2 years, because he's only a freshman. I think he's really going to show his talent these next 2 years, and I think he might go top 5 overall.
Yeah, this wide receiver class was stacked with just talent. Ryan Williams, another key talent in this freshman class. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see who goes number 1 off the board in the NFL draft.